Hello and welcome to this video of me, Captain Thomas. Now today I'm going to be doing a review of sorts on the first two episodes of Amazon's new TV show, The Grand Tour, hosted by Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May. And of course, this is my perfect opportunity to review the new series of Top Gear on the BBC, hosted by Chris Evans, Matt LeBlanc and a few others. And then of course it also gives me the perfect opportunity then to talk about both of these shows' predecessors, Top Gear on the BBC, hosted by Clarkson, Hammond and May. Now, the first two episodes of the Grand Tour were very good. You can tell obviously they have been let off the restraints from the BBC in their context, in their content, their language, their sort of locations that they can go and use. Original Top Gear, of course, was kept very on a very tight leash from the BBC, and also New Top Gear with Chris Evans is also kept on a very tight leash as well. Or down to I don't think they want to let anything similarly what happened with Jeremy Clarkson happen again. But as I've stated, the Grand Tour is a very interesting show, and later on I'll be putting up a few boards and I'll give them some scores. Now, another thing that I think is important to say about the Grand Tour is that it's very much like what original Top Gear was. Three grown men that should know better doing stupid things, be it with car challenges or any other kind of challenges. Obviously I'm guessing we will see a lot more non-car challenges on the Grand Tour than we did on the BBC's Top Gear, but it's all very similar in that context. Of course, on the Grand Tour there are a lot of things that they have attempted to replace with new things that they cannot use because of the BBC owning them and not wanting to be sued, which you can completely understand. Of course, there's a lot of things that original Top Gear with Clarkson, Hammond and May did very well, and new Top Gear with Chris Evans and Matt LeBlanc and people like that have tried to carry on doing things very similarly, but they've supposedly put a little twist on it to make it slightly different from the previous incarnation of Top Gear. I myself am not a fan of new Top Gear with Chris Evans. I know obviously now that Chris Evans has left that production and someone else will be taking over as head presenter. I myself will probably most likely carry on watching it, of course, but I doubt I will become a firm viewer. As I've stated before, the only reason I really watched Top Gear was because of the Clarkson, Hammond and May, their trio of presenters, and the way they worked together. Very entertaining, and I enjoyed that. And that has carried on perfectly in the new show. Obviously, Amazon's Grand Tour cannot use the individual known as the Stig. That's obviously stayed with the BBC's Top Gear, and this is one of the things about having to make a substitute for the new show. They have an American racing driver called the American, who of course, as he's driving around the track, is sort of doing a review of sorts of the vehicle he's driving around in. One good thing about the Stig was, of course, he was mute, he didn't talk, didn't know anything about him. And the thing about the American is he is very vocal about his dislike of most of the cars that he drives. even though it's only been 2 episodes in, you get the feeling that he doesn't really like many cars. So, but all in all, like I said, the 2 episodes I've seen so far have been very good. Now, other thing that I think we probably need to talk about is the fact the reason I didn't like the new Top Gear isn't purely down to the change of presenter. It was the fact that they altered the Top Gear test track. They tried too hard to change things, but also too hard to keep things similar at the same time, which in many ways is completely two things that are completely opposite. That if you're trying to do one thing, you can't really do the same. The other thing at the same time. So, in my opinion, that made the whole thing very convoluted and a bit too confusing for the public to watch. Chris Evans is tried on many occasions to replicate Jeremy Clarkson's attitude and persona on BBC's Top Gear, and that was one of the downfalls. I think the BBC chose Chris Evans purely down to the fact that he's very similar in those as attitude and bombacity as Jeremy Clarkson was, and I think it would have been safer if they chose someone completely different. Now, going back to original Top Gear, or from 2002 to 2015's Top Gear with Clarkson, Hammond and May, this show worked purely down to the fact that the relationship between the three presenters they didn't have to pretend. They weren't playing parts. They were friends who had all three a genuine interest in cars. Okay, now that's what I believe, and you can tell that even now on the Grand Tour they're still very good friends. They still all have a great love of cars, and they still have this great friendship. And you cannot pretend that. You cannot pretend to be great friends with people for that long. If you don't like each other really, it shows. Okay? So, Chris Evans, Matt LeBlanc, and the other presenters of 2016 onwards Top Gear are not friends. They pretended to be friends, and it didn't work. The idea that you have the impression that Matt LeBlanc and Chris Evans go out and have a couple of pints of beer after each show is complete garbage. It's not true. I very much doubt that they even have each other's telephone numbers. They wouldn't talk to one another about anything apart from being in that studio, and that showed. Okay? Like I say, I don't know about this new guy and anyone else who's on the presenting team of Top Gear, but hopefully that will be one thing that changes. They actually pick up quite a good rapport. Now, so all in all, original Top Gear, brilliant. New Grand Tour, brilliant. New Top Gear, shite. Now, let me show you some slides with scores on different points for all three of these shows, and see all in all which one do you think is going to be the winner. So here you are at the points board. Just so you're aware, the highest you can get on points is 150 points. As you can see, none of these three shows have received top marks. Original Top Gear, as you can see, has 100 points. New Top Gear has 25 points. And the Grand Tour has 27 points. Just so everyone is clear and aware, I will be giving points to each show on certain points. The chemistry and likability of the presenters, the challenges, all sorts of challenges, of course, from races to car challenges to Christmas specials, and the celebrities that they have had driving around the track, and the cars that they've had driving around the track as well. Now, of course, original Top Gear has, like I said, 100 points because they did have wonderful chemistry and a wonderful friendship between all three of the presenters. All of the races, all of the challenges that they've had over the full run from 2002 until 2015 were mostly superb. And like I say, also some of the cars that they had around the Top Gear test track were superb, with some of the speeds and some of the times that they had was great. And some of the celebrities that they had were brilliant fun to watch in their interviews, and the amount of crashes that they nearly had in the Reason Price car was superb. Moving on to the new Top Gear. Now, of course, as I've mentioned quite a few times in this video, there was no any relatability between any of the presenters of the new Top Gear, and it didn't seem to be at all as if they had any friendship or anything about them. Some of the challenges that I saw were all in all quite entertaining, but not as good as the old Top Gear. And that isn't just down to the fact that because of the lack of friendship or anything between the presenters, it was more down to the fact that it was the cars that they had as well didn't seem very accurate to the personalities of the presenters. But the only other redeeming feature about this really was some of the guests that they had, because they made the score go up, because some of the celebrities that they had were very entertaining. So that's a good point. The Grand Tour. Now, the Grand Tour, the challenges that they've done so far have been superb, almost as good as original Top Gears. They've been very entertaining, especially the one in episode number 2, in which they were doing army training, and every time they got shot, they had to start from the very beginning. That was hugely entertaining. Some of the cars that they've driven around their new track have been superb, and all in all, it's just been a very entertaining new take on a car show. And like I said, the friendship and rapport of the three main presenters have been superb, just like it was on Top Gear. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please subscribe and like, and I shall see you next time.